Was kann man lieben Freunde, eine Lia und herzlich willkommen zurück zu einer neuen The House in Fata Morgana Let's Play. Ja, meine lieben Freunde, wir sind heute in der 71. Folge angelangt und letztes Mal... Ja, 71, ne? Das ist echt crazy.
Wie viel war wahrscheinlich insgesamt?
Keine Ahnung. Ich habe da nicht von Anfang an die Videos gemacht.
Ja, okay, schau mal, wie viel trotzdem das sind.
Außerdem habe ich ja einen Stream gemacht am Ende, als ich bis zum Ende gespielt habe. Das ging so 2 Stunden zum Beispiel. Auf jeden Fall, Freunde, letztes Mal haben wir ein bisschen die Story von der Witch gehört. Mal gucken, ob die true ist oder nicht. Vermutlich sage ich true, weil ich sehe keinen Grund, warum sie jetzt hier lügen sollte. Naja, wer weiß. Ja, Freunde.
So, weiter geht's.
Ja, weiter geht's. Let's go, Freunde. Without warning. Without any time to prepare, the darkness drains away. Ich würde sagen Jugend. And a second later I crash into the stairs, hard.
Crasht richtig hart into the stairs.
Ich bin ein paar Minuten wieder da. Right at my ear I can hear the shh of the river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to very real images of a past I never lived. I can practically feel the fire in the eyes of that mad blood banquet's guests. My vision distorts, I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs?
Okay.
Ja, ich wollte sagen zuerst Giselle, aber Giselle kann ja nicht bluten.
Ja.
Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint? A witch? Ja eben, sie hat ja selber gesagt, if you don't lose yourself. Ne? Auf dem Weg nach oben. Is what I'm seeing through a lens of clarity or madness? Wait, no. I'm not her. I'm Michiel, no one else.
It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe. Your chest is on fire. Your vision is blurry. It's dark, it's lonely, it's scary. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, it's exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt.
Ja, er hat ja auch vorhin so gesagt, my consciousness meddles with another, so, ne? I reach my hand out and I plead for help, which is when I see something I can hardly believe. Yo, die Hand ist so wie bei der Morgana. Ah nee, das ist von dem Torn.
Dem Dornenrosen.
Ja, Mel.
Aber es ist auch confusing mit Absicht, so. Ne?
Ja, also für ihn selber jetzt. Ne? Both of my arms are covered in gashes. Oh, never mind. Both. Okay.
Sind wir doch Morgana? What the fuck's going on?
Nee. Blood.
Oder ist es so irgendwie der Instrumentality Project, die unsere Consciousness verschwimmt zu einer irgendwie.
Ja, hat er ja vorhin gesagt. Ja. Also vor zwei Let's Plays. Ja. Blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh beneath my skin has been exposed to the open air. All I can bring myself to do is scream. That pain, her horrible past, is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting and constricting and crushing me. Why is this
happening to you? Are you really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. Ah, das hat sie doch gesagt. Now you will feel. Hab ich vergessen. Now you will feel the story. You're just that kind-hearted, Michael. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? That you would make your way to me. But surely this won't be enough to do you in.
Of course it won't. Mustering up every last bit of strength I can, I begin crawling up the stairs. The red river beats against my open wounds, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my lacerated arms mixes with the blood already soaking the tower. So this is the pain Morgana suffered? Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did you resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life, turn into her hatred for all mankind?
Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michel. My grudge is only against a select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands, millions, billions of people living on this planet, my world is compromised, but a minuscule fraction of that. Hatred for all mankind? No, what I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although, if I had died still believing I was a saint, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission.
Are you saying the Lord didn't kill you?
Oh my, did you actually think that was the end of my tale?
Eben, wir sind nur so kurz zurück, wie bei The Maid's Tale.
Despite all your big talks, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said you wouldn't give in. So go on, know my pain, without losing your mind. Okay, more of the story, I guess.
No pain. Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say. I have no chance to object. Before I'm dragged back to that repulsive banquet, I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it will reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away at my consciousness. Back to Morgana. You're a damp witch, wearing a saint's skin. Bei Leute, der Sonic, der hier ist, so während der Story von der Witch, ist echt nice.
Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now. But that's all conjecture. Thinking about what could have happened is an exercise in futility. But no, I did not die that day. Brought together by constant mistreatment, the Lord's slave chose that moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into him and it was knocked off its course. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched the chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the riot, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my body, by my bloody limpy arm, and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, place where the people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. But
Apropos Taxes, ich hoffe, diese Bastard aus Fifth Door wurden durch die Taxes alle sind sie verhungert.
ja, irgendwie sowas vom Village. By the time we had arrived at a smaller brothel located a ways into the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I knew where we were, and feeling the gazes of those scantily clothed women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had ever been in my life, despite everything else I had been through. The idea that I had fallen so far I would have to become a prostitute scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints were supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man who gave me enough coins would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me here to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she would give me a room. I had trouble believing him though. I couldn't trust the word of a prostitute, someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day they would tell me I had to work. Nothing he said would convince me otherwise. Apparently sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown and handed me a mirror saying,
Even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that. You idiot's bum.
I could not believe what I saw. That couldn't be my face. It had to be an illusion. There was no way. That was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible.
Vielleicht deswegen, als so sie so sie herum gemacht hat, Giselle, so gegrabt, war sie so durchsichtig, sagen wir mal, ne? Und so kein Körper.
Ja.
Weil sie nicht selber. Ja.
Patches of skin had fallen off my face, exposing the raw red flesh beneath. It looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs. Except my face had never been cut before. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. The thing in my reflection was a hellish abomination. It was the twisted face of a witch. And although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. It explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me, and it also explained why he had said I was a witch wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of the dozen of banquets I had participated in, my face must have mutated, twisted into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I had become, dass er einfach auch so einen random Spiegel dabei hat, oder?
Wie, oder?
Dass er auch so einen random, einfach so einen Spiegel dabei hat.
Ja, kaum.
The sight of what I had become sapped the last bit of willpower from me.
Ich würde das gerne sehen, aber das ist wahrscheinlich für unsere Imagination.
Not because I was particularly fond of my face or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumble away. Test from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. Deciding I would rather be dead than struggle any longer, I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life was a sin. If I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side, and I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulation. Father God.
Ja, schon klar. Ich weiß aber nicht, macht man das immer so, wenn man so Vater damit den Gott meint und Him, dass man das groß schreibt? Das habe ich mich gerade nur so gefragt. Oder hier zum Rausstechen.
I think so, yes.
Also Gott schreibt man groß und dann Vater, I guess, auch. Und Him, also alles, was so mit Gott zu tun hat, schreibt man groß, I guess. Damit es heraussticht. I don't know. Oder vielleicht macht es jetzt hier, damit es heraussticht. Also vom Game.
Ich denke, so ist es einfach von der Sprache her.
Maybe,
Father, God, Him. But the young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I preserved, good fortune would eventually find me. He said that if I lived on, I would eventually have a chance to get my payback. I had no such worldly concerns though, but if no one would take my life, I had no choice but to live. I despised life at the brothel. The men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kinds of people who would think they could deceive God, and the women fawning over them were just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. But by the time a year or so had passed,
Ja, jetzt around 10, vielleicht ein bisschen älter.
my feelings about it had changed. The woman of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first it was just irritating. I was a saint, and how could a saint have prostitutes for sisters? But over time, I got to know them better, grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, Whenever they had a little to spare, they would use it to purchase medicine, ointments to apply on my arms, legs, and face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started looking almost human, but nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally, the slave would drop in to check on me. The other man thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near me, but he was different. Every time he visited, he would say,
One day I'll show you the world.
And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time at the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There, I was neither a saint nor witch, but an ordinary human girl. For the first time, I felt like my life had meaning beyond my assured divine purpose. I was even beginning to feel kind of happy. And with each passing day, my intractable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles, but that didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of a god or a saint. Maybe I was just a regular person, who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself.
Es war ja auch so diese Legend, die in dem Dorf erzählt wurde, in der Fifth Door. The Witch erfüllt dir einen Wunsch,
ja,
und du zahlst einen Preis dafür. Und sie steuert das jetzt wahrscheinlich irgendwie.
Guter Punkt.
Oder wie das wirklich...
Maybe.
Mal schauen.
But to me at the time it felt like a very dramatic change of heart. 3 years after the revolt at the Lord's Manor, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. Ich vergesse die ganze Zeit, dass sie jung ist.
Ja, das ist ultra.
The woman had all pinched into bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought that if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always... Ich will jetzt sagen, wie es aussieht. Es sieht aus wie so ein Pergamentbrief. Weißt du, wie es geschrieben ist. Und so, das ist auch so Tinte, aber es ist so Blut. Ja, egal.
Ja, und es wurde immer mehr Blut, ne? Also am Anfang war so ein bisschen und dann ist jetzt so richtig.
Okay, ja.
Schau mal im Hintergrund aus, so eine Nonne oder so. Ne?
For some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've got your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it, so why must they? I certainly don't mind not being miserable. Didn't. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you what happened that night. On the night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now, bandits were hardly a rarity in that time, so everyone was always on the lookout, and they never went out at night, and we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armed with blades and would frequently kill their targets if necessary. But cautious as we were helpless against a direct raid. The brothel fell into a panic, screams echoing in the night. The customers were carved up and left for dead. The women were bound and stowed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant. And the next thing I knew, I was some slave trader's merchandise. I didn't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me, or the slave who brought me to them. I assumed the women were sold and the young man was slaughtered. But regardless, I found myself being rocked around in the back of the carriage once more. The carriage was packed so tight you could barely see the floor, and it smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, achso, scheiße.
Was ist wirklich Fieses?
Ja, das ist scheiße.
Achso, lol.
Fäkalien. Every foul odor imaginable compressed into a tiny space. There were both men and women there, nearly all of them muttering or groaning or weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be out of work. It didn't take me long to realize what fate awaited these people and me. But when I did, I just sat there in silence. Then, for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad that I had been taken away from a place where I was happy, from the woman at the brothel and that young man. It crushed me. And no longer did I wonder why such a thing was happening to the holy daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him, because no man saw me and said,
Why are you crying?
he was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The color of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes.
Little?
Everything about him was new and unusual. Hesitantly I replied, I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me. The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he had asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping out of line, and they didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. So unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed it at the man. What was surprising, though, was what happened next. The man, his hands shackled like the rest of us, leapt for his guard, slamming his fists into his face and stealing his sword. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards were too stunned to effectively react, so they were quickly cut down.
What's the bums?
And because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was no one the slave traders could ask for people before they were slaughtered, for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over. And there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had to describe it, I would say it was as though a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled through the slave trader's clothes until he found the keys which he brought to me, ordering I unshackle him. And so I did as he commanded. Once they had enough time to process what had happened, the would-be slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved. For a moment I believed so too. When the man's hands were free, he rolled his shoulders to a couple times, made sure everything was in place. And then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through the helpless man and woman packed inside it. Blood and guts were splattered against every surface.
What the fuck is he doing?
Huh?
Was macht der?
And those who tried to escape did not get far before mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place. Not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, so my mind rejected it. And with my brain having given up, my body was more than a lifeless puppet.
Ja, jetzt, ne?
No more, oder?
Hast du, ja, aber hast du gesehen?
Was? No more than lifeless puppet. Yeah, it's
So
gesehen.
schwarz, so schwarz und so.
Yeah. In short order, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me, and with a little smirk he said,
Why didn't you run?
In turn, I asked him, why did you kill him?
Ja, mit einer Frage auf Frage.
The Lost Classic. The smile was my compilation. The smile vanished from his face, and after a few quiet moments of pondering, he said,
Because I felt like it. I liked it.
I was good at it. I
I was
really
alive.
I have to hear one more time. Okay. And why haven't you killed me yet? I asked. To which he gave a curt,
I don't know.
then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. And then I was all alone, surrounded by corpses.
Jetzt wurde sie angeschuldigt, sie hat sie alle getötet, die Witch. Probably.
I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me.
also der zweite Teil der Story. Aber auch nicht alles.
Ja. Warum nicht?
Oh.
An der Stelle würde ich sagen, Freunde, beenden wir das Let's Play. Blood of the Holy One. Jetzt, Michel darf sich nicht losen, Digga. Ja, wir haben jetzt auch, Freunde. Ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Sehr nice. Der zweite Part auch, der ihrer Story, also kaum zweites Kapitel oder so, genau. Die Wahrheit hinter der Wahrheit, ne? Ja, und an der Stelle würde ich sagen, lasst gerne Like und Abo da, checkt andere Parts, Playlists, Videos, Streams und was ich noch hab und ja, Freunde, wieder schauen und